Alright, what do you say we get this thing running this morning? Boy, it's cold out here, but I got my heater and I'm just about set up. Got a couple of things I need to do. First I'm going to power this thing up, but not just yet, but I'll power this up. This bucket, and it's just going to be something that the jar is going to be sitting on till I can get a setup in here that works a little more permanently. But this cooler has got 10 gallons of water in it, and it's fixing to have some ice in it, but not just regular ice. Now what the water is for is it will come through the lines. Hang on, let's get over here. When I get it started up, that pump right there is going to go in the cooler, and it's got a return line, and it pumps up through and then back out, and it goes in. Let's see if we can start from the start exactly where it does it. It goes in from right here and then into this section and then out of that back through here, and then comes all the way out through this main line. So it just makes a loop, and it does that because, you know, this is the condenser, old shotgun, and so the condenser has to stay really cool, you know. This is the reflux, that's the head, and a lot of people are confused when they see these types of stills, because they're used to the thumper types and things like that. But this is for really high proof, for fuel and vodkas and things that are just, you know, way up in the proof. So those are a little different. This one isn't really made to retain flavors, things like that. It's just straight ethanol, and then you do what you do with it after you get her done. But so here we go. That's about it. I'll get it going and show you what it's like once I've got everything set up, and it'll take about a little over an hour to get up to temperature, especially out here in this cold. It may take longer than that, but so here we go. All right, it's running now that it is on. We got time to go over some things, got time to jaw a bit, because like I say, it's gonna take a good hour, I'd say, to get up to where I'm gonna start catching the first little bit, the junk. So what we got going on here is these 2 liters that are frozen. I got a freezer that's dedicated to these. I got, I don't know, about 6 more or so that I can put in when I need to, and I just circulate the water. That way I'm not using a water supply, because that's, you know, that's a bit of water. That's water waste if you don't circulate it. And that's cold, because that water's been in here for a full day out here in the garage anyway, and so it's good cold water, plus those things. And as you can hear them, they're kind of crackling just a little bit, starting to do their melting thing. This, let's see if I can get down here a little better. This thing, you see this? Hang on a minute, we'll do this. You see that line that is coming off of there? This here is the temperature probe, which comes up to the head and it sits in the head with this cork and measures the still temperature. And of course, you know, that's the element. Everything else is corked off. These are for draining purposes or any other thing that you want to do. Some people put a spout to drain them. And then this thing is the heart of it. What it does is it controls the temperature. Now, as we can see, now this won't be the temperature of the pot. The pot is already starting to make a little bit of noise, believe it or not. It's only been 10 or 15 minutes, but it'll take a bit. This thing, like I say, is the heart of it. And right now I have it set, as you can see, that's the temperature at the top of the column there. It's right now 64. I've got it set at 146, because that will 148. Yeah, because that's right around that. We'll start to get some methanol off of it. Now what'll happen is, I don't know if you can see that green light that's glowing, means that the element is on solid. And what'll happen as soon as it gets up to that temperature, it'll actually, right before it gets to the temperature, it'll start letting off. It'll start automatically letting off to stabilize the whole thing at that temperature. And I'll hold it at that temperature for 10 or 15 minutes until I basically see that there's not a lot of power being used. And the way you can do that is this right here. We can see not only that green light is on, but if I hit this button, I can see the 100% usage that it's running the element at 100%. But when it gets down to where it's running that element at, say, 20%, 25%, to hold that temperature at 148, and it's not fluctuating back and forth, that means that the still will be equalized. And from then, when I can touch the temperature and I can move it by a point, 0.1 degree. In other words, 148.1, 148.2, etc. And it'll just move up, and it'll hold right where I put it. That makes it really nice for riding that temperature. Good ethanol starts coming off at about 179 on this still. It comes off before that, but until it gets equalized and straightened out, it's sort of strange. But right about 177, 79, depends. I don't know what it'll do in the winter. It might start coming off a little sooner, maybe a little not so sooner. We'll see. But that's how it works. So it's a waiting game until we get to some action coming on. Well, what I'll do here, probably somewhere right near that temperature, maybe a little below it. I don't know. I'll have my container set up just in case, but even when it gets to that temperature, it won't really be at 148, because that's when I'll get ready to turn on and the pump, and start getting the pump adjusted, because it only needs a little trickle coming out of the blue end. We'll show you that once I get to that point. But when I do that cool water will go up into this thing, into the reflux, and it'll cool it down, and then we'll start to equalize and get the reflux action going on. A reflux, what that is, and the way this works, different from a thumper, is that what happens is the heat comes up, starts to rise. All the steam that's in the column starts to rise, hits this cold spot. When it hits this cold spot, all of the water drops back down. Even a lot of the alcohol at first will drop back down, but the alcohol that's really fine vapored and whatnot will keep on rising. It'll rise and it'll come out, and that's how that works. So this water is always heavier, and it has a higher boiling temperature, so the water will drop down this side of the column or somewhere in the column, and the steam will continue to come up and out. So this thing cools any of the water and heavier vapors that are in there, and that's how you get the reflux. And it just keeps going down. The alcohol will drop down for a minute, reheat, come back up, drop down until it gets pure enough to where it's just going to come out. And then when it's high proof, 185ish, then it'll start coming out. I try not to even, you know, anything that comes out is 185, 186, up to 190, and so until the run gets further on through, then the proof comes down a bit. But even when I finish at the end of the run, the proof should still be at about 165. So my finishing proof, I'll run her down until it gets to about 100 proof. You know, 90 proof, 100 proof. Anything after that, it starts picking up the tails, and just starts picking that up, and that's not good. She's getting closer. Now you'll see it's gaining temperature. It'll gain temperature quite quick, up through from here on out until it gets right up there, right on 148, and it'll just fall back. And if I had a way of keeping an eye on the temperature for you while I'm going through these, because what I have to do is right when it gets around here, see, she's gonna climb pretty quick. And once it gets up there, I have to turn on the pump, which I just have to plug it in right down here in this secondary outlet. And I've got the water already adjusted, and I've primed it. All the air is out of the lines, and there's cold water sitting up in the head. But even still, it'll eventually catch up to me, and I want to start to hold it and get her at that temperature. So once it stabilizes right here at this temperature, I'll be back and I'll show you how it does that. Alright, as you can see, she's getting up there. 142. That's only been about 10 minutes since that last clip. Probably not even that, but what you can see, as you can see, that methanol coming off just occasionally, every now and then. Yeah, there you go. And that's the nasty. We don't want that. It's decently high proof. In fact, it's probably pretty high proof coming out of there. It's got a lot of oils, and other than the methanol, it's got a lot of stuff that's in there that just isn't really that good. It'll go into the fuel batch, depending on how oily it really is. It doesn't hurt, but if you were making that for any other purposes, you definitely wouldn't want that. I'll toss that first 4 to 6 ounces, about half of that, third of that, somewhere between that of that pint there, straight into the fuel container I've got 2 other fuel containers back there that I'm catching all of that into, and then run it through a fuel filter to see what if anything undesirable comes out of it, and from there it goes right in. But as you can see, it's nowhere, it's really not even at the temperature yet to start fully producing yet, and yet it's doing it. So I think we're gonna have a pretty decent run today. That right there is hot right at the temperature. This is good and warm. It isn't hot yet. Of course, this thing is cold, just about cold enough to sweat, and I don't even have the pump on yet, but I'm about to, because I want to stabilize that column and get the reflux happening. But I'm not real concerned about that yet, because I want this temperature to lock in and get up there a little closer, if not on that 148. It depends if this column starts to get too hot. By the time it gets up there, I may have to squeeze a little bit more water through it, because what you don't want is for this to cool down or to warm up so that vapor starts coming out of that rather than the liquid, especially while I've got my heater on. That wouldn't be real nice. It wouldn't be a real lovely combination. But there we go. I'll bring you back when we start to get some true action. All right, we are off to the races. I'm kind of stabilizing it, as you can see it, and it's getting there. It's going between them now. It's holding right there. As you can see how that works, it'll go just a hair above it and then just a hair below it, and it likes to do that. It's a lot harder to get it to stay real stable in the winter time, as you can imagine. But we're about to get the methanol out of the way. As you can see, we're dripping pretty good for methanol. Ooh, screen went off. There we go. So it's coming along. Like I say, we'll get about double what's in there right now off of there, maybe even a little more, and then we'll punch her on up a bit and start getting the good stuff out. So I'll be back when we empty this jar out, or when we get about a quarter of it, and there we go. All right, well, there's your proof. If I can get it stable enough. She's at 180. There we go. And to prove that it's floating. So that's where, that's where we like it. So we're off to a good start. Alrighty. Still growing strong. As you can see. And a half gallon later, let's see if we can isn't it pretty? So there we go. That's how it's done. And we'll just rinse and repeat until we're done. I'll probably get another, hopefully another one of those. Ought to do off of this batch. But and that's 175 proof right there. So a half gallon of 175 proof isn't a bad deal so far. Like I say, I assume I'll get right at a gallon of that. And the proof will drop, so it'll probably come out a little bit more than that, but there we go. And that is how it's done.